Family and Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And we are here at the County Council Chamber in Morpeth for a substantive single item agenda with relation to the Berwick Partnership. So if I can start, first of all, by taking apologies for absence.
I've received apologies from Councillor Dunbar and Chris Angus.
And Chris Angus, thank you very much. If I can ask members to have a look at the accuracy of the minutes, which are contained pages 1 to 6 in your agenda pack. Can I just ask if there are any items of accuracy which to clarify or to amend? I'm not seeing any notification of that, so I will sign those off as a true record. We have now item number 3 on the agenda, which is disclosure of members' interests. We all have disclosures which are published online, but are there any additional disclosures of members' interests which are from this morning's agenda? Paul Rickard.
Just think, Chair, it's important to know my role as DG in this today, Director of Education, as well as sitting as a Church representative.
We'll note that. No other declarations? That's fine. We move on to pages 7 to 10, which is the forward plan of key decisions. That's always an item which we just note as a scrutiny committee. I don't think there's any items on there that anyone wishes to amend. So just before we move on to the substantive single item for this morning, I just want to advise everyone of some very good news. David Street, who we have here, has now been appointed as the Substantive Director of Education, Special Education Needs and Skills. And I know from personal experience, I've known David for many years, that he's passionate about all 3 of those things. And I think he'll be an excellent officer for the county. So congratulations on your post, David. And we'll all look forward to working with you. So, great. So we're now moving on to the substantive single item for this morning, which in your agenda pack is on pages 11 to 166. And if I can just remind you what this is a report which looks at the feedback from stakeholders arising from phase 2 of the statutory pre-consultation with stakeholders in the Berwick Partnership, which was agreed by Cabinet, well, it was approved by us, but agreed by Cabinet in October 2022. What we're doing today is taking views of this scrutiny committee and asking Cabinet to look at those views ahead of their decision, which will be next Tuesday, on whether to progress to the next stage, which is the formal stage of consultation. So today is a process, it's not the end of it. We're asking about where we move on to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in Sue Aviston, who's going to take us through the substantive recommendations in the report. So over to you, Sue Aviston.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. So yes, I'll do my best to précis that long report that you've got in front of you. So I will refer to a number of paragraphs, but try and capture the essence really of the report. And as Councillor Daly has already said, obviously this report represents the outcomes and the analysis of feedback received from stakeholders during the phase 2 consultation, which hopefully scrutiny members will remember set out possible models of school organisation within both a 3-tier system and within a 2-tier primary-secondary system. Consultation as well also was undertaken in order to increase specialist provision within the Berwick Partnership, and again this report sets out the feedback and analysis in respect to that consultation, as well as the recommendations for the next steps, which is to progress to a statutory consultation. So moving on. Again, you know, a well-rehearsed process that we've undertaken for a number of years at Northumberland County Council around our method and format of consultation. And again, that's set out in paragraph 17 to 23 of your report. But again, just a bit of context in the background. We've been having these conversations in the Berwick Partnership now since April 2021. We did run a community survey in October 2021. We've already carried out one phase of informal consultation that was around the structure of schools and the way that they should be organised. If you remember, again, no clear direction around whether the partnership should remain three-tier or change to two-tier. And again, that was around us moving to this second phase of consultation around showing the details of each of the models. And today's report is setting out the feedback to that consultation process. So again, we have carried out lots of face-to-face visits. So again, we've run 4 public events as part of this consultation. We held one in Belford, one in Wooler and 2 in Berwick. They were attended by 110 people, of which 83 were parents and members of the public, and the remaining 27 were either governors or staff of schools in the Berwick Partnership. We've also held a further 32 meetings and have had meetings with all the governing bodies in the partnership, as well as all the staff groups. We have also held a meeting with the Duchess's High School governing body as well, as they would be impacted on some of the proposals that we were consulting upon. And again, a summary of these meetings are contained in paragraph 77 of your report. The feedback and analysis from the consultation, again, is summarised in paragraphs 31 to 77. And a summary of the governing body responses are contained in paragraphs 31 to 47, with copies of their full responses contained in the background papers. And these can be further summarised from the 16 governing bodies. 12 responded to this consultation to say that they were in favour of the 2-tier system. Again, that's broken down into the governing bodies of 10 of their first schools, 1 middle school and Berwick Academy. And really just to point out at this point as well, that is 2 more schools than had support for the 2-tier reorganisation at phase 1 of the consultation. 4 schools are in favour of the 3-tier model. Again, 2 town middle schools, and that was supported by both their governing body and their staff. We also had 1 first school where their staff and governing body also supported remaining within the 3-tier system. And then we had a differing of opinion at one of our first schools where the governing body wanted the school to remain 3-tier, but the staff body wanted for the school to convert to a primary school. So that's the first time in my time doing this job that we've ever had that split as well, so quite interesting. We've had 2 schools that have stated that they didn't have a preference, and that's quite understandable, as the Grove Special School wouldn't be impacted on the reorganisation, so didn't express their view, and also Belford Primary, as they are already a primary school anyway and didn't feel that they should comment on the organisation of the rest of the schools. Again, continuing with responses, again, we had collective responses from staff groups of the schools that were impacted by the proposals. And again, these are set out in paragraphs 48 to 63 of your report, but again can be summarised as 16 out of the 18 staff groups did respond to the consultation as a collective group, with 8 of them supporting the move to 2-tier. 4 supporting the continuation of the 3-tier system, and 3 were unable to express a collective view, although individuals still did respond individually to the consultation. Moving on to our more strategic partners, in terms of our education delivery in Berwick, the Church of England for Newcastle Diocese has expressed their view that the 2-tier system would be most beneficial way forward for the children of the partnership. Just to remind people in the room as well that obviously the diocese have 6 out of the 17 schools are faith schools within the partnership. And again, a summary of their response is contained in paragraph 66 of your report. The Diocese of Hexham and Newcastle, the Roman Catholic Diocese, have also expressed a view that a move to 2-tier would be in the best educational interest of the children in Berwick. And again, a summary of their response is contained in paragraph 67 of your report. We also had a response from the trustees of the Bishop Buick Catholic Education Trust, again the body that's responsible for St Cuthbert's, and again that they believe that the two-tier provides the better educational opportunities for children. And again, they've set out their educational reasons why, and they can be found in paragraph 68 of your report. We have throughout this consultation worked quite closely with our Parent Carer Forum, as well as Northumberland branch of the National Autistic Society. And again, they expressed their view in this consultation again, and their view is that the two-tier model is better. The three-tier system has too many transitions for students dealing with special educational needs at a time of going through puberty as well. So again, within the two-tier system, their view is that one transition is better, that there's a better transfer of knowledge and access to specialisms earlier. And again, they felt that moving at the year 7, that the young people were better to mix more emotionally. And again, a summary of their response is contained in paragraph 69 of the report. We also received formal responses from 2 of the local county councillors, and again a summary of their feedback is contained in paragraph 7, where they both supported the implementation of a two-tier system in the Berwick Partnership. We also received 4 responses from parish councils in the local area, of which saying that they didn't support the revised 3-tier model. 3 of them, however, did support a 2-tier option, and again 3 of them also supported the move of Belford Primary School into the ANIC partnership. So again, a summary of their responses contained in paragraph 71, wasn't it? Yes, 71. Other responses that we've received during consultation, and this is a well-rehearsed line of mine that you'll have all heard many times before. So again, whilst consultation isn't a referendum, the numbers stated in the report should be seen as an indication of the current views of the community that responded and should be taken into consideration, but not be seen as a determining factor. Again, paragraph 72 of the report summarises the feedback from the responses of individuals, including individual governors, staff and community members. Paragraph 64 also sets out the responses from parents of children in the Berwick school system. And like previous consultations, there were differing views in equal measure. We also received 2 petitions requesting support to prevent the closure of various schools, and these were carried out during the phase 2. Again, one for Save Our Middle Schools that had over 5. They also held their own public event where over 500 members of public attended. That was held in the local town hall in Berwick, and the petition itself had 813 signatures to their online petition. And again, all that information is contained in the background papers of your report, and hard copies of the background papers are in each of the members' lounges. Again, we had a petition for Save Our School for Scremiston First School, and again there was 837 signatures on that petition too. So moving on to the responses relating to special educational needs capacity, again they're set out in paragraph 73 of your report, and these were on proposals to grow special educational needs capacity. Again, on the 2 options that were presented in the consultation document, views were fairly evenly split. However, the expansion of the Grove to meet the needs of all the pupils in the Berwick area wasn't supported by either the staff or the governing body of the Grove themselves, as they didn't want to expand their designation of their school to meet the needs of all the pupils in the Berwick area. Moving on to early years, again the feedback from early years is set out in paragraph 74, and again this highlights some concerns about under provision in some of the small and some of the rural areas, as well as some special educational needs provision for the early years for children that present with special educational needs. Again, we also sought views around post-16, post-18, and those ideas that have been expressed during consultation are set out in paragraph 75 of the report. And again, these will help shape some of the facilities that will result in a new build high school if that's approved moving forward. As is always the way with informal consultation, we do set out ideas and options as to how we can achieve the challenges that have been faced by the Berwick Partnership, but we also ask for alternative ideas and suggestions about how those challenges can be met. And again, during this consultation, we've received 7 main alternative proposals. And again, a summary of the options are contained in paragraph 78 of the report, together with commentary in response to each of those options. And this includes the proposal from the governing body of Tweedmouth and Berwick Middle Schools, which is known as option C. And again, their full proposal is also contained within appendices 4 of the report. So really bringing together a conclusion from, what has been 2.5 years worth of work. Now it is time that the local authority really has the responsibility to provide some system leadership regarding school organisation. And it appears that a critical mass of support for two-tier among the educationalists in the partnership has been reached. And in light of the rationale and the reasons put forward by the majority of schools in the partnership who support a structural change to a primary-secondary system, officers now recommend that a two-tier structure should be implemented across the mainstream schools within the Berwick Partnership. For the educational reasons to support this recommendation are also set out in paragraph 79 of your report. The recommendations also include a reduction in the number of school places in order to more closely match the number of pupils being born within the wider Berwick catchment area. And again, Table 7 sets out the proposed model, which would see also a reduction in planned admission numbers for Spittal First School from 40 to 30 places in each year group. For Scremiston First School from 18 places to 10 places. From Berwick, for Berwick St Mary's, from 30 places to 15, and also the suggestion to Berwick Academy Trust that they reduce their planned admission number from 225 down to 180. And again, the details and rationales for individual schools are also set out in full detail in paragraph 82 of your report. As part of the recommendations, officers are also recommending that Belford Primary School move to the ANIC partnership and that Wooler Primary School, as it would become, would remain in the Berwick partnership. The recommended option also to support the growth in demand for specialist places is to create specialist units based at St Mary's Primary School, as it would become, and Berwick Academy, to meet the needs of children with social, emotional and mental health needs, ASD, moderate learning difficulties, as well as speech, language and communication needs. But we also should be noted that the decisions for Berwick Academy would require the approval of their trustees and also the regional DFE director for the North East. And again, the rationale for those proposals are also set out in paragraph 81. There are implications of the proposals and the recommendations moving forward, and again they are set out in paragraphs 82 to 97, and again they include the preferred model of school organisation, the implications for individual schools of the proposed primary secondary structure, the timeline for implementation, which is currently begin implementation in September 2025 and would be complete in the following year, September 26, and it is at this point that you would see the middle schools close. Staffing implications are also set out in paragraph 85, which include the ambition to have an agreed staffing protocol across all schools and academies in the partnership in order to protect the ongoing employment of those staff deemed at risk as a result of these changes. Changes to catchment areas are also set out in paragraph 86, and copies of the maps associated with those changes can be found at appendices 3 of your report as well. SEM provision, again, as previously described and detailed in paragraphs 92 to 97. Again, in terms of early years, there are no proposals to change or increase early years provision, although there will be opportunities moving forward with changes in legislation about free childcare being provided to a wider group of parents. Again, transport implications are also set out in the report, and these would, there is deemed to be a slight saving to the local authority as a result of these changes. Building implications, including estimated costs of proposals, are set out in paragraph 90. And again, these are indicative at this stage. There hasn't been detailed work done with the individual schools. This has been a desktop exercise carried out by the local authority. So there is further work to firm up those budgets as if we move forward to statutory consultation and through to any final decision. And while the plan does include a replacement or maybe refurbishment of Berwick Academy buildings, the final building solution would be subject to a separate business case for approval by Cabinet, and this process would not begin until the final decision following the outcome of any statutory consultation if it were to be approved. And again, implications around sport and recreation. We don't believe that there would be any negative impact on those facilities, and in fact would potentially see some enhancement through investment at Berwick Academy moving forward. So really to conclude, and I think Scrutiny members will remember that we started the journey really with an agreed vision for change that all the governing bodies themselves signed up to and head teachers. And it was really for me just to, I suppose, test the recommendations here against that vision and that ambition that we set off with 2.5 years ago. So if you remember, the number one driver was around improving educational outcomes at each phase to ensure every child meets their potential. So again, we believe the proposed model would align responsibilities and accountability for whole key stages. It would reduce the number of transitions, and the education professionals' majority view is that a two-tier structure would produce the necessary improvements in outcomes for all young people. Again, a big discussion in Berwick was around the sustainability of education across the whole partnership for the long term. And again, you'll have heard me say this on many occasions with various reports, that Berwick has the second highest number of surplus places, which currently stands at around 33%. The proposed model, if implemented, would provide a reduction in this to around 15%, so reduces our surplus places by over half. As the new model would also provide places for around 210 places per year group in primary and 180 places in secondary, and this reduces the number of places across the partnership by 732 if this model was to be implemented. And again, this more aligns with the predicted numbers moving into schools, as would be suggested by the birth rates. And again, they are standing around 150 to 165 a year moving forward for September 23 through to September 2025. The reduction in these number of places across the partnership also means that there would be more pupils in fewer schools, and this is estimated to provide an additional revenue fund of about £1.4 million into primary schools and £1.8 million into the secondary sector. Improving and extending special educational needs for children and young people in Berwick was also a main driver in order that their needs could be met more locally and travel times reduced significantly. So again, as you're aware, around a third of the pupils requiring a specialist school place that reside in Berwick attend specialist provision outside of the area. The proposed model looks to increase special educational needs capacity by around 70 places within Berwick mainstream provision, with the introduction of specialist support bases, therefore supporting the vision agreed by all schools by providing specialist places more closely to home. I think another challenge for us was around engaging the Berwick community in the review process in order to build an understanding of all the issues and to grow support for any proposed changes within schools in order that the community engages and thrives. And again, that's why we have gone around about a very different consultation process. For the first time ever, we ran a community survey to understand the feeling of the community before we set off on any consultation. We've held 2 informal consultation processes. These have taken place in September 2021. We have, as a result of this, we have contacted over 12,000 people directly to provide their responses to this consultation. As a result, we have received over 1,525 responses. We have held 6 face-to-face public events. We have also held where 111 people attended. And again, feedback from all of this consultation has been used in coming up with these final recommendations for the report. We also had an ambition around ensuring that the schools work together to further develop the partnership and create a sustainable model for the future. So whilst the impact of the schools working together will not really be measurable for the next few years until after any implementation of any changes, the building block of strengthening relationship have been formed over the last 2 years during the development of the options for consultation. And whilst it hasn't been possible to reach consensus across the partnership on the model for school organisation, there is a level of professional respect that has allowed opposing views to be shared openly amongst head teachers and therefore enable people to move on with mutual respect moving forward. Underpinning best value for the council was our last priority to ensure that we get wider investment opportunities for the model. So again, the proposed model would see investment in the wider community use in buildings, and again, you will see the proposal for Wooler to become more of a community campus, and the detail of that would need to be worked up more locally during the next phase of consultation, as well as enhanced community facilities that would be developed as part of the new build for Berwick Academy. And again, the target investment in special educational needs and creating the additional 70 places to support for those support bases at Berwick St Mary's and Berwick Academy. Thank you very much. I think that's everything I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. I want to bring in Guy Renner-Thompson before I open it up to members. So, Guy.
Thank you, Chair. This isn't the first time this topic has been to fact, so I'm not proposing to run through the entire report again, but I'm going to want to give you a bit of background as to how we got here today. So, the issue of secondary education in the Berwick Partnership is a long-running one, probably ongoing for the last 20 years or so. Berwick is in a very unique position, although it's a large town of about 14 to 15,000 people. It has the North Sea to the east, and then the Scottish border slopes down to the west, which means the number of children available into the high school is smaller than Alnwick, for example, which is a smaller town but with a larger catchment. This has meant that the number of children available to go into the high school hasn't been what the school has been built for. If a school doesn't have the number of pupils in it that it's built for, it has to pay for the heating and the maintenance of those buildings with a smaller number of children. The administration proposed in 2019 that we would rebuild Berwick Academy. This follows on from our pre-existing builds in Ponteland, Hexham, upgrading Hayden Bridge, Amble and Seaton Delaval. And Berwick is the cherry on the cake in the north of the county. It soon became clear, however, that just spending money on rebuilding Berwick Academy as it is would be a wasted opportunity. And the partnership asked us to look at the whole partnership as a whole and see if changes could be made. The partnership invited the council in to examine them. Before we even started this process, we had preliminary meetings with them. And initially they wanted a period of stability, which is why it took us a little bit longer to get to this point than I would have liked. As a brief history of the partnership, Belford Middle School closed in 2018 as a result of the ANIC partnership going two-tier. The ANIC partnership going two-tier dragged children away from the southern rural end of the partnership. Because of that, Wooler Middle School also asked to close before this process, but we asked them to remain open while we could look at the whole partnership as a whole, which they agreed to do. That only really left the 2 middle schools in the town itself as being viable, which is why they're the 2 in the report which have objected to the change. The other 2 middle schools, one's already closed and one is happy with the change. Within the report, we had support from councillors Mather and Hunter. Since the report has come out, the report has been endorsed by the other county councillors in the area. That's Hunter, Hardy, Hill and Seymour. The other Berwick County Councillor, of course, being myself. And we've had support from the local MP. So we have seen cross-party support for the proposal in both in the report and in the local press going forward. One of the key priorities for us is special educational needs. I'm very, very keen that we stop seeing children being bussed across the county. We want to see children educated within their own areas, which is why we've increased the special educational needs capacity in Berwick. As we know, numbers are going up nationally. I do not want to see children having to drive from Berwick down to Blythe, for example, or even Morpeth. It's not good for them. It's not good for the school partnership. And of course, post-16 is a priority for us. There is already post-16 provision in Berwick, in college sites that are sort of dotted around the town. There's a hairdressing part in the middle of the town, for example. Part of these proposals would see a proper, dedicated post-16 addition to the high school, which again would hopefully mean children and young people being able to remain in education in their town and not have to get on the bus to Ashington or the train to Newcastle, which in turn would boost the town and the people in it. So yes, I think we welcome questions on the report, but it should be noted that this has to go away for another 4-week consultation and then it comes back to Cabinet. So you are going to see this paper again in 5 or 6 weeks' time.
Thank you for that, Guy. So we've had a detailed presentation from Sue. So now is an opportunity for members of fact scrutiny to ask questions of officers or to make comments. Does anyone have any comments? Councillor Dale, I've got you first, and then John, I'll bring you.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for a long report. And it's very, very, it's very interesting to see over the years how we've developed and looking at two-tier against three-tier. I think one of the things which is obviously in here, which is part of your chief, is improving education outcomes. And I think we've all been driven down that route all the way through to ensure that we do have improved educational outcomes. The other one is the sustainability of education. So we need to ensure what we put in place is sustainable, not just for the next year, the following year, but long term. Because that's the way that we actually ensure that our children have a really good education from the beginning all the way through, which would be to the high school in this case. So when I've read the report and I've looked at all the numbers and the outcomes, etc., there are one or two things that I would like responses to. The numbers basically is what the cabinet member mentioned was heating and stability. And I just would like to look at the smaller schools. I'll just get the page. And they are small. I know from I federated 2 first schools and absolutely chock-a-block, but they're still having problems with their sustainability. So if I could look, and I think everybody probably would like to look at the I'm just trying to find the right page. I've got it marked off, just the, on page 72 and 73. And the sustainability of the first schools, or the middle, the primary schools, would be, it's not just about having affordability for the right amount of teachers, but also the overall education, so games, sports, doing things together where you need quite a lot of children of your age to engage and to take part. So there's a bigger picture. And I just wanted to know what your views about sustainability and also enabling a really good education. So if I looked at some of the smaller figures, for instance, Norham, Church of England First, Scramiston, and also Spittleford, sorry, not Spittle, just those Lowick at the top, sorry, Norham and Scramiston. What I would like to know and have a discussion about is, there's also the other small one, but I think that's because it's on Holy Island, is actually your views on how the education of children in such a small group in primary and the costing, because I know how government, as you probably know, David, I know how government funding comes about, etc. And what your views about the sustainability of these schools long term. So I don't mean 1 year or 2 years, because what I want to see is that the county investment in these schools actually is long term, otherwise we won't be delivering value for money, and that's one of the other key things. I'm really interested in finding out that the schools have got that correct funding to make them sustainable, but also providing outstanding education across the board of education in those areas. So I think if we could have a conversation around that, that would be helpful, please.
So thank you for that question. I'll ask David Street, Director of Education, to take that on. David.
Yeah, currently in Northumberland we have schools of all shapes and sizes, and we have successful schools of all shapes and sizes. So we do have a track record of knowing that sustainability and being successful with that, long-term sustainability, is possible. I'm also a realist. It doesn't come without its challenges. There are challenges in running a school of any size, actually, and in terms of budgetary requirements and trying to make sure that things balance and that the right staffing group can be put in place to meet the needs of the children. But as I say, we do have a track record of that. One of them you actually mentioned there, Lowick and Holy Island, work together exceptionally closely. That is a mutual support between those two schools. One is smaller than the other. It's not that the larger schools support the other, or vice versa, actually. There is mutual support between those two schools. And the fact that those two schools are open and, for example, they receive their lump sum is something which benefits both schools. And I suppose all of our smaller schools, the ones that are most successful are the ones that are in closer partnership with others, formally and informally. And going forwards, if the schools within Berwick and those smaller schools in particular continue to work together or even formalise how they work together, then there is every opportunity for them to be sustainable going forwards and also to deliver on a high quality education.
Thank you. So you confirm that the County Council actually agrees that those two schools will be sustainable for the long-term future, for that investment to be made by the County Council in their buildings?
We have success in exactly the same situations in different places in Northumberland currently, and I would expect to see success at those schools going forwards, yes.
Thank you for that. I've got 3 speakers now in order: John Sanderson, Paul Rickard, and then Caroline Ball. So, John, if I can take you first, please.
Lovely, thank you, Chair. Whilst these discussions have been going on for a number of years, there has been concern about the drift of pupils up to Scotland, down to Alnwick, into private education, and the details are featured on page 19. Because this has been discussed for a number of years, is there any indication that this drift is slowing down, or is it fairly consistent over a period of time?
Okay.
Sue, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, thanks. Yes, John, over the last 2 years, there has been a larger intake into Year 9, into Berwick Academy. And again, we did consult, and a paper came through Scrutiny around the reduced number, planned admission number into Duchess's High School as well. So our view around sustainability in the north of Northumberland and a bigger picture. So, yeah, and again, you know, we did have some positive feedback from parents during this consultation about individual experiences within the Berwick system. So it does appear that there is more support, shall we say, for keeping children in the Berwick partnership. Again, it's only one example, and I know, you know, we're talking 200 children leaving the partnership, but again, some parents have opted for the Scottish system and are now trying to get back into the Berwick system, having had experience. So again, there'll be reasons behind those individual cases, so you're not going to see an absolute tide of people. But, you know, again, I suppose as a parent rather than an officer, you make individual decisions around your individual children, and they can be very, very different, can't they, depending on your circumstances. And I think that's been one of the challenges we've had from members of the public and other school staff about why are these parents leaving the Berwick partnership. People want to understand their reasons to implement the model moving forward. But again, we've said they're also very, very different. And so it would be hard for us as officers around making a recommendation around experiences of people here and now. As Councillor Dale rightly said, this decision is around the long-term future for the Berwick Partnership. And while we take into account people's experiences now and feedback now, we've got to look at the big picture. These decisions are here for a long time after all of our head teachers will no longer be teachers in the school, and we won't be local authority officers either. So we need to get the balance, and that's why I always say it's not a referendum either.
Guy, did you want to comment on that point?
Just briefly on that one, John. So one of the reasons we lost children to Eyemouth and Alnwick is because they had shiny new buildings and Berwick didn't. So I would expect that to have an impact on the reversal. I would also like to say that from my informal discussions around the partnership, people's attitude around the high school is much improved on what it was. And the head teacher and the new leadership team there are doing a fantastic job. And anecdotally, I'm hearing that people are coming back from those partnerships into the high school. Personally, I'd like to see us completely reverse that trend and start pinching children from over the border, because GCSEs and A-levels are a better, more recognised qualification than Scottish Highs.
Brave man if you're going to Edinburgh in the next few days on that one, Guy. I'm sure there's nobody watching from Scotland. Right, so if I can take in now Paul Rickard, please. Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I think just from the perspective of the diocese, in terms of what's been noted, it's clear that we are in support of this. I think in response, Councillor Dale, to a couple of comments you made with our tiny rural schools, we work hand in glove with the local authority in terms of how we manage our schools. We work very well together. You'll see that part of our success has been hard federation, and that is something we will probably explore now moving forward, as we have in Lowick and Holy Island, to secure the future of those tiny schools. And I think the examples that we've now got demonstrate how well that works. Not necessarily, dare I say, part of an academy chain. It's something that we've explored quite carefully with the local authority, and we think we've now demonstrated real success at that. So I think in response, we have future planned this and future-proofed this as much as we can, working with the local authority for the community. I think the only thing which I was keen to kind of explore a little bit was that on page 80 of the report, there are some capital costs built into the programme. There are voluntary aided schools in there which don't appear to have any capital input into. I know that the SCAR funding that comes in, like everywhere, is now reduced for every local authority and diocese known to man and woman, for that matter. But it's for the investment required, I do feel there needs to be a visit back to, particularly two of the schools, which I've mentioned to the authority, which we do believe will require investment in order for them to move to a primary system. So just to note that for members.
Okay, so I think that will be noted by officers, so thank you very much for that, Paul. Councillor Ball.
Thanks, Chair. So it's just with regards to the table on page 105, page 103. 4 schools that are rated good, closing, with pupils then going on to schools that are currently rated as require improvement. If we're talking educational outcomes, I personally, as a parent, would be concerned if my child was going from a school that is currently rated good into one that requires improvement. So that's just one thing that I would like to know, and I would like some guarantees on what's actually being done to make sure that the educational outcomes of them people that are moving is going to be the same as what would be previously. And also we've seen in the press around schools nationally having issues, some of them tragically just not fit for purpose now. So obviously we're looking at what we need to spend to make these schools suitable for the extra people that are coming in, but actually what impact does the money that we need to spend to make sure that's suitable for the people that are already there? I'm just wondering if that's been factored in, because it doesn't, as much as I welcome all this money investment and everything else, I do have concerns that it's nowhere near enough to what we need to make the schools suitable for standard and the educational outcomes for the young people, what we actually need going forward.
So what I think I'll do is I'll bring Audrey Kingham on the substantive question there. So Audrey, could you take that, please?
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Ball, a couple of things to pick up on. First of all, educational outcomes, everybody's committed to that. I understand particularly the focus that you've spoken about, closing 2 good schools and moving pupils to a requires improvement. This committee in particular has talked about Berwick Academies, I'm going to say evolution and change. So what we do know is that that school has already moved from its category to requires improvement, and I think we've got 2 taking effective active action, external objective inspections by Ofsted that have told us it is moving in the right direction. I would say very clearly, and you remember we also had Catherine Cowell, the Regional Schools Director, at this committee, and again, rather like Paul has talked about earlier, the Diocesan Director, we do work hand in glove with the Regional Schools Director and are both committed to doing that. I would also just like to say that this year Berwick Academy have also asked the local authority school improvement team to be their significant partner and have bought into the agreement around school improvement, and we now provide that. So we have reported routinely and regularly around the impact and outcomes that are improving year on year. I expect to see that continue. The trustees of Berwick Academy work routinely with us and talk, and I understand their commitment is very strong to continue that improvement trajectory. I'll ask Sue to probably talk about money and capital outcomes and costs.
Yes, in terms of the report and the statutory decision eventually the Cabinet will be making, the costs identified in the report are to support that change. The elements around ongoing maintenance and upkeep of buildings and perhaps some of the suitability issues that you're talking about, that is a regular maintenance programme that we do year in, year out. We probably spend in the region of about £3.5 to £4 million across the local authority maintained schools on an annual basis in terms of investment. What we will do that won't form part of this report is see whether there are opportunities to do some of that maintenance work while we are on site doing other things. That brings in even better value for the council overall in terms of, you know, if a school needed window replacement while we're in building another classroom, it makes a lot more sense to deal with those works then. But you won't see that cost identified in this report because that's a delegated budget that comes to officers that we make the decisions on an annual basis in conjunction with our leader member as well. So, and as you know, I'll probably sit here year in, year out telling you that we've got £70 million worth of backlog maintenance in our school estate. But again, the thing I always say to you, I'm probably one of the luckiest officers in the local government that our elected members identify a significant amount of our own capital money in order to invest in our education system. I think my budget's currently standing about £102 million, so I don't think anybody's going to have any more money in their budget for education investment.
That's great, thank you. And one other thing, in the report it says that leisure and recreation should be better afterwards. Can we change that to will be better and give some guarantees to the people that will be sending the schools that they're going to get better leisure, recreation and better facilities in the north of the county, please?
I think that's just the detail needs to be worked up, and we need our partners to work with us.
The devil's in the
there.
detail.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I've got Councillor Fairless-Ake and then Councillor Swinburne.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Pip to the post. Thanks, Caroline. Nabbed one of my points, damn it. Anyway, it was a really honest, I thought, and quite sort of almost brutal report in places on problems in rural areas. So thank you for that. It was really made an interesting read. And as someone who fought for three-tier in the West, I now see the problems with it, especially to do with the SEND issues. I appreciated the National Autistic Society's comments as well on that. So that, you know, we've got a lovely, shiny new high school, thank you. And it is full. And that, you know, it does lure people in. And I'm really hoping for that for Berwick. We do have problems with SEND in the West that I now see through the comments here. So I'm hoping for a SEND hub to be added to our school very soon. Anyway, and obviously there are problems with teacher training. I see that with the middle school system. So all those things I completely take into account. And I'm an optimist, so I do, but you know, I really hope that this is the right decision. But I do worry that gluing too good to outstanding local authority schools to a kind of struggling for improvement academy is not the best option. It may dilute it. Whereas the campus model I found very interesting, because you're taking the two good schools and effectively putting them on site alongside the struggling school. I quite liked option C. But I see the costs of that. I saw the problems of that as well. It is money at the end of the day, isn't it, for that option, 58 million as opposed to what we're already giving. So good luck. I do hope that we can guarantee some improvement in outcomes for Berwick Academy, but I am worried about the middle schools still being diluted in that process. So.
I'll ask Audrey Kingham to pick up a couple of the points you've got there.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm not sure I would describe Berwick Academy as struggling.
The results show that though.
So I think my annual education report talked about all of our schools and the challenges that we face around the county. In fact, the challenges we face nationally. It isn't my role to defend individual schools, but I think it's really important to be objective in terms of our understanding of performance. We have got a change in their Ofsted grade, and you know that I always say Ofsted inspections are a reflection at a moment in time. It is, 2 days out of a particular week that Ofsted arrive. And so our assurances around the school improvement team, what we see, how we engage particularly around SEND and the work that we do with Sue's inclusion team within Berwick Academy and our wider connections with partners in the north. So I just felt it would be important to just respond and say that actually we wouldn't recognise that as struggling, and I'm certain that the trustees wouldn't want us to recognise that in terms of the scrutiny function.
Okay.
Thank you.
Comments were mostly based on the results after, so the 2019 to 2022 last results of the school that were still falling compared to Northumberland average and national average, whereas the other schools seem to have improved from that. So it was based on that I made my judgment. And that still concerns me. Hopefully that can be turned around soon. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got Mark Swinburne, then Councillor Dodd. Oh, sorry, Paul, did you want to come in?
Could I just say, in terms of just as another party involved there, I visited the academy quite recently and was there for an hour and actually spent most of my day there. I was that impressed with the change that I saw, and that was actually most of my time was being allowed to just spend with students wherever I wished to go. So I was given carte blanche access to the academy because obviously I'm qualified to do that in my position. But I was really thrilled by the changes that had happened there, and I could see the engagement from the children, the engagement from the staff. So I would support the view that actually there are real improvements in that school now, and it's a tangible change. And I think the openness to work differently with the local authority is another important marker for that as well, to say how much it's come on. So I think it's reassuring for members to hear that, and members of Scrutiny in particular.
Sue, did you want to respond as well to something? Yeah.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Daly. It was just in terms of good and outstanding middle schools, and really just to say that good and outstanding schools have good and outstanding staff. And if you see the implications around the report, around that, the protection for those staff moving forward to support the transition of the young people through this process, and really the driver behind a staffing protocol is the staff follow the children, and in order that we protect the staff through the staffing protocol, that supports the smooth transition of children moving through the system. So we are hopeful that those staff will have their continuing employment in a different system, and that will impact on those good and outstanding outcomes for those children and young people as well. So just the human element.
Thank you. So I've got Mark Swinburne, then Councillor Dodd.
And Councillor Thorne.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. And then Councillor Thorne.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to thank officers for such a concise and detailed report, as should be on a subject matter as this. It's never an easy decision to make when you're considering changes to schools and possible closures. And that's why it's so important to take on board all of those professionals who are directly involved in this, and not just go ahead and make a decision without this type of consultation. And I agree with Guy Renner-Thompson there. It would be the wrong thing to do, just to spend £40 million without going through this process and checking on the infrastructure first. I've got a couple of questions, and I'm not sure you're going to be able to answer all of these. The first one relates to the report on page 106, and that's the projected budget deficits on some of the schools. Is that in relation to the fall in numbers, and that's why it's looking at a projected deficit? That's my first question.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's obviously the cost of living pressures that have come in and things as well, but yeah, that combined with falling pupil numbers is the difference, and that's what we've tried to do through this consultation, is look at cost of living crisis and funds to look at the projected deficit of school budgets. So really, in the consultation document, etc., we're looking at that point in time, but that has obviously, there's been a greater impact now with the wage increases, fuel increases, etc. So yes, and that is the case.
I just want to clarify that was in relationship, and it's not that the county council's reducing the money that it's given to schools or anything like that. It's nothing to do with that, and that was the reason. The other one is in relation to special education needs and the move of the Grove to another area, and the increase in places. Is that going to be enough with that projected increase in places? Will that be sufficient to cover the expected need in the area? Or are we potentially missing an opportunity with proposed closures to use one of those sites to maybe open up another special education needs school? And on the back of that as well, and I'm not sure whether you can answer this, if we are looking at closing some of those schools, is there a potential of using one of those sites as something perhaps for further educational employment training, rather than them just being empty, sold off, etc., etc.? So it's just the potential uses. I know it's not directly related to this specifically, but I'm just thinking if this does go ahead, we do have some possibilities there. So it's just a thought. Thanks.
So in terms of the two options that we consulted on around special educational needs, one was around either reusing the buildings at Tweedmouth Middle School or actually using the site to build an expanded Grove Special School. But I think, as I said in the presentation and in the report, that option wasn't supported by either the staff body or the governing body at the Grove Special School. So therefore, we are proposing that the Grove stays where it is. It meets the needs of the children that that they've always met. They are a good and outstanding school with that outstanding leadership, but feel that they want to remain specialists in that field and not expand their provision. If we were to use Tweedmouth Middle School site, for instance, to build a new special school, local authorities are not allowed to open new schools. We would then have to go through a competition, a potential free school route. And as you know, I think I've been talking to you for the last 4 years about trying to get Gilbert Ward open in Blythe. That wouldn't be reactive enough for us as a local authority to meet those needs of children as close to home as possible. And that is why we've come forward with, what was also an option in consultation, now is our preferred option, is to expand 2 of our mainstream schools, to have those specialist units attached to the mainstream school sites. Again, in discussion, with the parent groups, I think that's something that they really support as well, because again, we've still got some of our children with special educational needs that can access main curriculum, can get the qualifications that means their outcomes in in adult life are very, very different to, if we, at the age of 4, put them in a special school. So again, and this is not the only partnership that we're looking to expand these units on mainstream school sites, and it's what lots of other local authorities are doing as well. So this is a direction of travel for us as part of our strategy as a local authority overall. Excuse me.
Thank you, Sue. Oh, David, yeah, if you want to come on.
So just to add to what Sue's been saying there, more broadly, we're all aware of the increasing demand for specialist placements. Yes, part of the solution to that is to extend and grow some of our excellent special schools. But actually, in terms of trying to get a blend of offer across Northumberland where what you need is closer to your home, that has to start taking place on mainstream school sites. And we've got lots of really inclusive mainstream schools, and we need to encourage them and support them in becoming more specialist with their inclusion. And also bring in all of the schools really to recognise that there's a need, at least in each partnership, if not at multiple schools within each partnership, the right type of provision, as close to the home as possible, and the specialist support-based model is going to be a great addition to that.
Councillor Dodd, then Councillor Thorne.
Yeah, very briefly, Chair. I've got this report that you gave me with a graph of the attendance, the catchment, the non-catchment and all that. And what is stark here is that we have to do something. And it's right that we put everything in the pot. As with all the schools, there's always going to be someone who's going to be not happy. But I think we would be doing a dereliction of duty if we did not tackle this problem that we have here. And only 30% non-attendance or with the empty desks. Half in that is a great thing, and if we get this right, that figure will come down further. So we've got to do this. Thank you.
Councillor Thorne.
Yes, Chair. Very excited and supportive of this report. Berwick-upon-Tweed has been in limbo for too long. And indeed, when the regional schools director attended, I did make that point to her. And I know she didn't like what I said. But sometimes you've just got to say it as it is. It has taken such a long time to get here. But as sort of policy makers, as strategists, we all know you can't impose a system, a structure on an area. You've got to take the community with you. And I think we've done that in the consultation. It's community and pupils, parents that make a school work. We've got all the county councillors behind us here, so, lots of ticks in the boxes there. And, I very much hope, yes, this is going to be a new beginning for Berwick. And, we stop that drift away over to the border and down to the south. So, I'm pleased we're here, and come on, let's get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thorne. I think the one thing that struck me... Sorry. Reverend Lennox. I'll conclude what I was going to say after you've spoken. So I'll let you go.
Commend the County Council on this very comprehensive investigation, consultation, and the report. I particularly welcome it and think it's an excellent document. And it's personally pleasing to me as I look through the evidence here. And I say this largely for the benefit of my friend on my left-hand side, that when the three-tier system was introduced, the teacher unions were not in favour of that three-tier system. They wanted a two-tier system. And I think it's taken us more than 50 years to recognise that they were actually right in their interpretation at that time. So it's a particularly significant, and I remember at the time, if my memory is correct, one of the difficult areas was the Berwick area in particular, because of its rural situation. And there was a lot of consultation going on at that particular time. But it's really quite encouraging to see the way we're going at this time. And that, you know, many years ago, the professionals on the ground really had it right and were ignored. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Page 25 of the report, I think, pretty much sums up what this report says. Just think it's important to read it. And it's from the governing body of a school. And it says, "We appreciate change is often difficult. However, change is what is needed in Berwick to offer the children of our area and for future generations the best possible start to their lives. We believe we have the people in place to make the change happen and the knowledge and expertise to help manage that change." And I think that pretty much sums it up. We've got a fantastic teaching staff, support staff, backup support here from the County Council, the community. And I think that one section of this whole report really sums up for me that there is a momentum within the Berwick Partnership area to actually do things differently and do it differently for a reason. Which brings us on to the purpose of the report this morning, which is, I think we've had a wide-ranging discussion. I think we're all absolutely assured that the consultation which has gone on so far has been robust and has developed into an opportunity for a formal consultation to progress. So I just want to remind you what we're being asked to do, and I think the notes have been taken this morning, and I think it is clear that there is clear message from this Scrutiny Committee that we really do want to emphasise the importance of sustaining our small schools. I think that's a really important point that we make. So whatever model happens, that is a really important point. But we're being asked this morning for our views, which will be fed back to Cabinet next week. And Cabinet is asked to approve the recommendation to publish statutory proposals for the implementation of a two-tier, that's primary, secondary structure for the Berwick Partnership, which does include the proposed closure of some schools. You have 8 recommendations before you on pages 11, 12 and 13. I don't propose to go through those in detail, but I think we've discussed them this morning. So I think it is the will of the Scrutiny Committee that we are in favour of the evidence within this report, and that we're recommending that Cabinet does make that decision to move to a formal consultation process on changing the education system within the Berwick area. I think that seems to be the will this morning. So, on that basis, I want to thank the officers for the work that they've done. And I know when I was doing Guy's job back in 2017, and Paul Rickard will know this, there were many times I went to the Blue Bell in Belford and met many of the teachers from the Berwick Partnership, and boy did we have some rather interesting discussions. But we have eventually got there, and now it moves to a formal stage, and hopefully that will ultimately benefit the young people and future generations of Berwick. So thank you very much this morning for that. What I want to do is just reinforced the fact that we were going to discuss on the agenda items the committee work programme. That's not included in your pack. We'll discuss that in more detail at the next scrutiny committee. I've not been informed of any urgent business. So on that basis, thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you for our visitors who've come down to witness hopefully something which was entertaining for you and informative. So thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next scrutiny meeting. Thank you.